Okay, good luck, everybody. I want to share with you a story from the previous Rebbe's memoirs. The previous Rebbe shared many stories for the purpose of publicizing them with a Yiddish author, and all the stories are printed in this sefer called Lubavitch Rebbe's Memoirs. It's not actually from the writings of the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe gave his writings over to this Yiddish author, and thank you. And he gave his writings to the Swedish author, and he prepared them for publication, and they were published, they were printed, and we have them now translated from the back into English and to Hebrew from the previous Rebbe's writings. Yes, Rosie. No, thanks for the orange. And that was very nice to offer the orange. No, not right now. Okay. So tonight I want to share with you a very important story. I say it's important because it's something that is very relevant to each of us. And it's the story of how the Baal Shem Tov's Chassidim changed from being a private group, a secret group, to becoming a sensation that spread throughout Europe, and everyone found out about the Baal Shem Tov's Chassidim. Shem Tov had a group of Chassidim living in a town called Harki. And in this town, there was a Polish prince whose name was Benedict Radzville. Benedict Radzville was very good to the Jews. He had owned a lot of land there, and many Jews worked on their various estates. He had owned forests of many miles around Harki. And Benedict would spend a lot of time in France. In France, he became very close to a Jew named Pierre Louis. Pierre Louis was a Rosie and Zalman and Chaya all know the story already, Baruch Hashem, but you don't know the details. You haven't heard the details yet. So Benedict Radzville, whenever he went to France, he would spend time with Pierre Louis. In fact, he moved to France for some time, but eventually he married into the Dmitriev family. It was an illustrious royal family in Russia called Dmitriev, and this Benedict Radzville, he married into their family, and so he moved to Russia. When he moved to Russia, he also brought with him his close confidant, his best friend. Pierre Louis came with him to Russia. But twice a year, they would leave Russia and they would go back to Harki, where they had a little lodge outside of Harki, where all the squires and noblemen would go there for a hunting trip. They would go there once in the summer, once in the winter. Here, Rabbi, you have a seat. Once in the summer, once in the winter. They would go together to hunt. And they had a big party there. And Pierre Louis, in general, was a bit of he was the life of the party. He was the guy who was. He was married to some non-Jewish woman, also from a royal blood, but she had died when Pierre Louis turned 55. And once she died, although Pierre Louis was very. There's a rumor that you told the Prime Minister that Japan can't. Although Pierre Louis was. Go ahead. Okay, the pizza arrived, so my children are no longer listening. Second list. So when once his wife died, unfortunately, Pierre Louis, whatever little bit of normalcy he had in his life, he came from a very assimilated family in France. He wasn't very observant at all, but he was married to someone, and he had some sense of normalcy. But once his wife died, if you're not asking a question, it's better to mute yourself. Once his wife died, he hold on. 1 second.
You want me to pass this information along to Washington? Don't push us into a corner. You must give those of us who are more reasonable the chance to carry the day.
Anyway, so once his wife died, Menachem Mendel, if you're able to mute whoever's not muted, because I think someone's phone is on and they're, thank you. So anyway, once his wife died, he totally became a very, very even more party animal-like kind of person. And when they went on this annual party every summer and winter to this state, he was the guy who was the life of the party, and he was the one that was also very talented in hunting. He was the man of attraction. So the Baal Shem Tov had a chassid. His name was Reb Nissen. Reb Nissen's son, Yitzchak Shol, actually was the one who inspired the Alter Rebbe's father to become close to chassidus. So Yitzchak Shol's father, Reb Nissen, he was a close chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, and he came into the Baal Shem Tov for an audience. At this audience, the Baal Shem Tov told Reb Nissen that there are different kinds of souls with different missions in the world. It says in a pasuk in chapter 107 in Psalms, there are those who go down to the ocean in ships. Baal Shem Tov explained that there are souls that come to this world, and they come to the world in a sort of like a ship. They come into a very insulated, comfortable atmosphere, a very protected atmosphere, and they're able to live a very wholesome life because they're brought up in a very wonderful kind of environment. They descend to the world, they descend to a dangerous place, but they descend to the world in a ship. They come to the world in a ship, to a safe place. In a very friendly, positive environment.
So we might as well practice now.
Nachum, are you on? Nachum, you still on?
That's why I'm still on. If now counting seagulls in San Diego, you're here with me. Looks like we got hit in our fuel tank, too.
Hold on a second.
Please don't, sir. This might save your life one day, Murray. Engine's about to die. What the hell is Bess doing? He's out of the group. It looks like his engine cut out. He's in a scud or
Definitely is, sorry.
I don't know. But it's going to hit the first wire like always. Not with that angle.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sideways. The shake's sweet, so we don't put a hole in the neck. And not crack that damn plane.
Okay, l'chaim baruch. So, okay, sorry about that, everybody. Motzei Shabbos is a busy time in everyone's household, so a lot of things happen, and sorry about that. Anyways, so Rabbi Nissen is an audience of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov tells them there are certain souls that come down to the world, ba'aniyos. It's a verse in chapter 107 in Tehillim. Some souls come to the world in aniyos. What are aniyos? In ships. They come to the world in a very friendly and wholesome environment. It brought up to be faithful to and devoted to their Judaism, their Torah mitzvahs. There are other souls that come to the world without the ship. They come to the world in a very challenging environment. The word aniyos, which means ships, also means oy vavoy. It also means an expression of pain. So it's like a person going into the ocean and not having a ship, not having any safe place, not having any place to rest, just treading water in the ocean. So the Baal Shem Tov said, because there are souls that have come to the world that are challenged, God gave the world other souls, or in the same verse it says in the next words, there are souls who do work in the great waters. That means they do work to help. It's literally, it sounds like they're working on ships or sailors, but it means that there are some souls who come to the world and their mission is to help those souls who are floundering in the difficulties of the challenges in this world, and they're able to, with their Avos Yisrael, with their love for the fellow Jew, they're able to help the other Jews who are floundering without any ships to, don't mute me, sorry guys. They're able to help those who are floundering, that they should be able to come back to their roots. So the Baal Shem Tov said there's a Jew named Pierre Louis, and Pierre Louis's real name is Pesach Tzvi. Pierre is for Pesach, and Louis is for Halevi. His mother's grandfather's name was Pesach Tzvi, and the name Louis is for Halevi. And I want you on the second day, after Pierre Louis comes back from the hunting trip, I'm going to give you an envelope. I want you to open the envelope after Pierre, on the second day after Pierre Louis comes back from the hunting trip, and do exactly what it says in the envelope. And I also want you to go over to Pierre Louis every day after you open the envelope and tell him who he is, tell him what his real name is, tell him why he has this name, and tell him that he's a Jew and he should come back to his people. Okay? Reb Nissen leaves Mezhebush and heads back to Harki. When he gets back to Harki, the marketplace is buzzing with a great tumult, because whenever there was a hunting trip in the surrounding area of Harki, that district, that area, the market, people who had different wares, they knew what the noblemen would like to buy, and they would put that into their wares, and because they would have a lot of business in that time of the year, and either the winter trip or the summer hunting trip, there was a lot of business happening then. So when Nissen came back, people had already arrived for the winter trip, and when Nissen came, the whole marketplace was buzzing already with the excitement. Pierre Louis and Benedict Radzville came together to make a banquet to welcome all the squires and noblemen and noblewomen who had arrived for their trip. The actual hunting trip, the hunting was in a lodge that was in the outskirts of Harki, but Pierre Louis and his noble friend, his friend who was a Polish prince, Benedict, they made this banquet to prepare for all these people, and they spent 2 days in Harki, and then they went off to the forest for hunting. When the whole trip was over, the whole hunting was over, and the parties were over, Pierre Louis comes back with Benedict to Harki. Whenever they stayed in Harki, they stayed at the home of the priest. The priest they would host them, and they had to go back to Harki to buy provisions for their next leg of their journey back. They're going to go back to Moscow. They lived in Moscow at the time, and before they went back to Moscow after this hunting trip, they wanted to get provisions for their journey. So they went to Harki, and they were staying that night at the home of the priest. When Benedict Radzville walked over the threshold of the priest, he tripped, and he had a revolver in his hip pocket, and a gun. Thank you for translating with the word revolver, Rosie. And the gun went off, and it shot him in the stomach. Now, whenever they traveled, they also traveled with a doctor, and the doctor tried to stop the bleeding, and it was unsuccessful. And they had sent riders out to go find better doctors all around in that area to treat him, but his condition was getting worse. When Nissen heard what happened, all the Jews really loved this Benedict Radzville because he really was very kind to the Jewish people. They heard about what happened to him, and they all they felt very bad. So Nissen realized the time has come to open up the letter he got from Baal Shem Tov. So he opens up the letter, and to his surprise, in this letter, there is advice exactly to how to heal the wound that Pierre Louis had in the stomach. Baal Shem Tov gives an ointment. Give an ointment he should take, a medicine he should take.
It's Radzville.
Prince Radzville.
He said Pierre.
I'm sorry, thank you. Benedict Radzville is the one who got the bullet into his stomach, not Pierre Louis. So the letter from the Baal Shem Tov said exactly how to treat. Didn't say his name, but just said this is how this kind of wound is treated. And if you're asked, how do you know how to treat this wound? You should say that you got this from the Baal Shem Tov, a Jew who lives in Mezhebush. And the Baal Shem Tov said, if you get rewarded, if the person who you heal wants to pay you back in appreciation for healing their wounds, do not accept it, and just ask in exchange that the person who you heal be kind to the Jewish people and help them earn their livelihoods. Okay. So he goes to the home of the priest, and he armed with this ointment, and he's greeted by Pierre Louis. Pierre Louis sees him, and he says, "What are you doing here?" He's a Jew with payas and tzitzis and a beard. He says, "What are you doing here?" He says, I can heal the prince." I could heal Mr. Benedict Radzville. Pierre Louis is very scornful, and he's like, what are you doing here? You don't know what you're doing. You're just a religious Jew. What are you doing here? But the doctor who was treating the prince says, listen, the guy's going to die anyways. If he has an idea, let's try. We have nothing to lose. I have nothing to keep this guy in this world anyways. So the doctor asked him to come in. He comes in, and with the help of the doctor, he gave the ointment that Baal Shem Tov had given to Benedict Radzville. And he also gave him medicine. After about an hour, Benedict woke up from his, he was unconscious all the time. He woke up from his unconsciousness, and his fever started to go down, and the wound closed. So then Reb Nissen asked to speak privately to Pierre Louis. He came over to Pierre Louis, spoke to him in a private room, and he said to him that your real name is Pesach Tzvi, and you're named after your mother's grandfather, and you're a Jew, and you lived till now in a way that was contrary to Yiddishkeit, but now is the time for you to come back to God and your people. Now the Baal Shem Tov had told Reb Nissen to come back every single day that Reb Pierre Louis is there. It doesn't matter what Pierre Louis, Baal Shem Tov told him, it doesn't matter if he yells at you, it doesn't matter if he's indifferent. Every single day while Pierre Louis is in Harki, you have to go back to him and tell him the same exact message from Baal Shem Tov, you're a Jew, and this is your real name. So after about 3 days, the prince had gained his consciousness and was he always wasn't unconscious anymore, but he was already feeling better enough to be coherent and talk. And he asked, can I speak to this person who had brought this wonder cure? I want to know who this guy is and where he got this cure from. So Reb Nissen came, and Reb Nissen told the prince how he was able to cure him, how he got this cure from the Baal Shem Tov. And that's how Baal Shem Tov's chassidim in Harki became famous. And Baal Shem Tov became famous. Until then, it was told who the Baal Shem Tov was and what he was about. And that's how, thank you. And that's how the Baal Shem Tov became publicized in the whole region. So Pierre Louis and Benedict Radzville eventually leave Harki, and Nissen, again, as Baal Shem told him, said, I don't want anything in exchange. I just want you to be kind to the Jewish people. And he was the prince was very appreciative of his honesty and integrity, and they left. After they left, around the month of Nissen, Pierre Louis came back from Moscow looking for Reb Nissen. It was a month of Nissen, it was months later, and he comes to the home of Reb Nissen, and he told him that all the tray of food that he's been eating till then, just his stomach can't handle it anymore, and he can't handle the lifestyle he's living, and he wants to come back. He couldn't eat any more treif, Rosie. Exactly. He couldn't like the treif anymore. He couldn't eat the treif anymore. And he wanted to come back to his people. And therefore he came back and he said, I told Prince Radzville, I wanted to do this. And he was very understanding. He said, follow your heart and I'll give you an estate in Harki. I'll give you one of my estates. You own a lot of land in Harki. I'll give you my estate. You're my best friend. You should go back, follow your heart. And so he asked him, listen, I want to come back to Jews. I want to become a Jew again. What should I do? So Nissen said you should hire a teacher to teach you how to read Hebrew, to teach you how to say the right blessings before eating. You said the bracha, Rosie? Hire a teacher to say the right brachas. And Pierre Louis became very successful in his learning. After a year, he was already able to learn Chumash, and he became a very big part of this community in Harki. The previous Rebbe then says a very interesting conclusion to the story. The conclusion of the story, he writes, that year on Pesach, Pierre Louis took his horses. He had a wagon that was led by 4 fine horses. The way the nobleman would travel. This was like the equivalent of an Aston Martin. What's it called? The McLaren? Lambo. Yeah, he had a very nice purple Lambo, and he took this purple Lambo 4 white horse wagon to bring the water to bake the matzahs. It's a very great celebration to bring water, to very great merit, to be part of the celebration, to draw water from matzahs. So Pierre Louis took his horses to draw. He previously used this wagon for his hunting, and for the parties. And now he took the same wagon to draw the water for the matzahs. By Chabad, the custom is when the water is drawn for the matzahs, we sing the song of Keliyata. You know, the song of the Alter Rebbe, Keliyata v'yedeka, because you draw the water for matzahs to consider a very auspicious time, a time of revelation of soul. In fact, it says that Yonah ben Amitai, Yonah Hanavi, he got his prophecy. Actually, got his prophecy. Yes, he got his prophecy. Sorry, on Sukkah, Sukkah Bais Bezalel. The Rebbe Cashapp said about one of his chassidim that the essence of his soul was revealed in this sheer joy that he had in drawing the water for the matzahs. So Pierre Louis comes with his wagon. He got to the water, and as the elderly Rav who was honored to draw the water for the matzahs, Pierre Louis put on his leather leggings that he previously used for his hunting. He went out into the water while the rabbi went on this plank, and Pierre Louis supported the rabbi to draw the water for the matzahs. And the previous rabbi, I think, emphasizes this point to show what teshuvah means. Teshuvah doesn't mean that you forget your past and that you live a new life, but the idea of teshuvah is to bring with you everything that you've learned and everything you've gained, whatever lifestyle you've lived before, and you bring that to Hashem. As Baal Shem Tov says, where you are, God decides. What you do there, you decide. So just like the Baal Shem Tov told Reb Nissen that there are some souls who come down to the world in ships, some souls who come down to the world without the ships, and they're in a state of aniyah ve'aniyah, a state of woe, and Hashem made it in a way that it's fair, that there's a kind of, you don't choose which soul you are. You don't choose if you're the soul that's brought up in the ship environment, or you're the soul that's brought up in the aniyahs, the very precarious environment. But the important is Hashem made this partnership of souls, and he chose certain souls to be the ones who are born in ships, and certain souls to be born in a state without the ships. And Hashem wants the souls who are born in ships to reach out for those who weren't. I'll post incredible presentation of Rabbi Wolf describing a supposed conversation that Hashem has with souls in Gan Eden. You have to see this. It's incredible. Not that Rabbi Wolf is privy to conversations of souls in Gan Eden, but I think based upon this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, it sounds like it's actually it resonates as something that's true. That some souls, their mission is to be born in a safe environment because they have a mission to lift up other souls. So it's not that you're born and you have your comfortable life, and other souls born and they have their difficult life. The soul is born without kosher, without Shabbos, but Hashem made this partnership. As Rebbe told a friend of mine that every soul in our generation came down to this world to uplift another soul. So here, Reb Nissen, he was born in a ship, and Pierre Louis wasn't born in a ship. But it's not only Reb Nissen, not only Pierre Louis, it's something really that's really part of why you're here in this world. I don't know if you guys saw the Living Torah that was tonight. The Living Torah tonight is about the mitzvah of Shabbos candles. And there's one woman who wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and she writes how she has a friend who, her daughter has a friend on the same block, and her daughter was so excited like Shabbos candles that she shared this with her friend. The little girl told her friend, "Hey, Shabbos candles so amazing, you want to do this?" So this little girl, Jennifer, on her block started like Shabbos candles. And they were so appreciative of it. And everybody gave such a blessing. And everybody sent dollars. Because this is really why Hashem gave us this opportunity to be born in the ship. You weren't born in the ship just because Hashem likes your McLaren, your Aston Martin, your spiritual Aston Martin, your spiritual fantastic ship. You were born there because Hashem gave you the resources. You can lift up another Jew who doesn't have the advantages that you have. So Hashem made it fair. And some souls, Rabbi Wolf presents it in this way. One soul was born, and God says to him, "You're going to be born in the ship." And the other soul says, "You're not going to be born in the ship. But can you please invite this guy for Shabbos? You're going to be born in the ship. Please, your brother. Think about your brother and invite him for Shabbos." Anyways, my friends, good vach, Rabbi Yosef, good vach Shoshana, good vach Yonatan, good vach Charles, good vach Yosef Cohen, good vach Joseph David, good vach Beryl, good vach Yosef Newman. Point is, my friends, that we're coming to this world. We have a mission, and there are Jews out there that need our help. And we know we were born in a ship in many ways. Other Jews weren't. But to think about people around us and how we're able to lift them up with Abbas Yisrael. L'chaim, l'chaim v'bracha. Questions, comments, criticism, tomatoes, and cucumbers. No tomatoes, no cucumbers. All right. A good vach.